Hi, welcome back to the Hope to Hope Conference. This is Kim White with the My Sexy Business team. I am representing for Dr. Cassandra Bradford Wilson with Genesis Preferred Solutions. She is off getting an award and acting all important without me. She's at a red carpet event and she gets to dress up like a princess tonight, and but that's okay. I get to hang out with the famous, the infamous Mr. Gary King.
Thank you, Kim.
I'm excited because Miss Connie Myers is the founder of the Crystalline Moment Success Movement, and she is filling in for Dr. Cassandra. And we are both so honored to hang out with you.
Well, I'm honored to be I'm honored to be live with you, even though you're 1,500 miles away.
Well, we're going to have to remedy that soon because I'm coming out there.
All right. Well, fly in.
Well, I want the world to know because, I'm thinking most everybody knows who you are, and if they don't, I don't know what rock they've been crawling under. But just to make sure if there's somebody online that doesn't know who you are, I want you to talk a little bit about who you are, where you've come from, and how amazing you are. Can you just tell me how amazing you are?
Well, let's put it this way. I've had a pretty amazing life, and I've had an amazing life. See, life has side effects, okay? And so I've been on both sides of the curve. So I've had some of the worst side effects that you could ever imagine, and I've had some of the most amazing side effects that you can imagine. But the whole thing is life has side effects. So my life, I've been everything from a professional race driver in powerboats. I've been an international artist. I traveled all over the world for 14 years as an artist. I spent 25 years in the personal development industry, around 6 million people. I've traveled just on one airline, just on American Airlines alone, just short of 3 million miles internationally. I've spoken schools, prisons, to leadership groups, third world countries, universities, just about every place you can think of. I've spoken schools K through 12, so I've done presentations to kindergarten children. I do a lot of one-on-one stuff. I have a lot of clients who call me from all over the world. I've studied psychology for 30 years. I've read over 2,200 books now on all nonfiction, no fiction books. I don't read fiction. So I had a near-death experience, which changed everything. I had a phone call on July 29th, 2012 that changed my life forever and ever and ever. It'll never be the same again based on that phone call. And I have a mission that I will accomplish before I leave. And it's going to be a while before I leave. So yeah, it will be. I work with a lot of people. I really like doing things in schools. I want to make sure that before I leave, we put an end to bullying. And schools start teaching self-worth and life skills instead of 100% academics. You'll never solve a relationship challenge using a formula from algebra.
True.
Well, Mr. Gary, this conference is the thing that we set it up for. The purpose for it was to share those vulnerable places in us that most people look at where we are today and they think, oh, we were just born in this awesome life and never had any trouble. We're just successful at everything we do. They have an unrealistic idea of what success looks like. And this whole conference is to share those spots in time that, that we had some things. We've gone through some things. And I know you've gone through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And again, I'm privy. I feel like the most blessed princess on the planet because I know all of you guys and just have privy to your stories, which gives me much encouragement. That's why I want our followers to have that kind of encouragement because sometimes it's just knowing somebody's gone through something you've gone through that will bring you out.
Well, there's no question. I mean, I in my interview I did here a couple of days ago, I'll share something with you. The host that was interviewing me asked me to do what I had done in another program, and he said, "Do it really accelerated." And I went, "Okay." So here's what I did. I call it "What if." What if you were 5 years old and you were disfigured? You had a birthmark on your face, and so you started at 5 years old with an inferiority complex. What if at 5 years old you were publicly shamed by your father? What if at 17 years old you were in a home invasion and 5 people beat you almost to death until you were unconscious and then they continued to beat on you? What if you were 18 years old and you developed arthritis at 18 years old? What if at 20 years old your father was in the hospital and he had had a heart attack and he was due to get out in 2 days and you refused to see him because you had a core belief? Very important term, core belief. You had a core belief that your father didn't like you and love you. So you went to visit him. 90 seconds into the visit, he was due to get out in 2 days. He died while you were standing there. And you blamed yourself for his death, and you did that for 35 years. What if at 27 years old, you were diagnosed with RSD, incurable, not treatable, RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy? What if at 30 years old, you got married, the marriage didn't work, it fell apart, you went broke, you got seriously depressed and suicidal? What if at 37 years old, just when you were recovering from the divorce, you accidentally ran over a 5-year-old child and took his life instantly? What if the father of the child threatened to kill you? What if shortly after that you were diagnosed with cancer, refused the surgery? What if shortly after that, your only child, your only biological child, the end of a 2,000-year lineage, took his own life? That's my backstory, and I left out 30 different things out of that backstory. Now, here's what I'll tell you about the backstory. It's not your circumstances that define your future. It's not your circumstances. It's your choices. So, you see, I had to make a critical decision. Right after what he did, I had to make a critical decision. I had to decide whether to stay or leave. Once I decided to stay, I had to make another decision. Am I going to be a victim or an inspiration? Which am I going to be? Because I got to choose one of the two. Because statistically, the odds were against me staying. That's the statistics with parents who go through what I've went through. And there's no shortage of parents that have gone through this. So I made a decision to be an inspiration. Well, from that point, and that doesn't mean just because I wrote a book called The Happiness Formula, people go, "Are you happy every day?" If I was happy every day, they'd commit me. You're not supposed to be happy every day. See, that's the very subject, vulnerability. In order to be a whole person, you must be vulnerable. Because if you're not vulnerable, then you suppress. You suppress emotions and you repress them. And if you do that, you're going to seriously harm your physical body. Seriously harm it.
Well, I'll just tell you this. You just listed a bazillion reasons why I just absolutely love you to my middle. because you've gone through that and more, and you are such an amazing person, and quite frankly, you're like me, you're a hot mess.
Well, thank you very much.
I think that you have done amazing things, though, to help other people like realize that there is an end to some things. I mean, we have to get up and go on. And I've also buried a child, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to get past the next morning. I couldn't believe God let the sun come up.
That's right.
And yet I can sit here today and tell you my life is so sweet. I mean, you're one of the sweet things in my life.
Thank you for that. It's all about choice.
I just think, yes. But, if somebody's sitting there today, because, I think we don't know who's listening or who's going to listen to the recorded version of this. What would you say to someone who has gone through some major things, like, losing a child or all the other horrific things that you listed? What can they do today? Because, sometimes we like to be cliche and pat somebody on the back and say, you're going to be just fine. And that's not really kind.
No, that isn't. Matter of fact, right after my son did that, I developed. Well, I got PTSD when I was 5 years old. That was when it really started. When I was publicly shamed. Of course, there wasn't a term PTSD back then. But what happens to people? And all humans go through grief and loss. If you're a human being, you're going to go through grief and loss. Mm. What you must learn to do is understand grief and loss. Grief and loss is normal. That is normal. You are supposed to feel that. And if you try to not feel it, see, there's 5 levels of grief and loss. Most people don't even know that. There's 5 steps through grief and loss. If you're fortunate, you choose therapy. So a therapist can walk you through the 5 steps. If you don't choose therapy, you can easily get stuck in one of the 5 steps. So it works like this. When you experience, and grief and loss can be losing a child, it can be a foreclosure, it can be a divorce, it can be a pet, losing a pet, it can be losing all your money, going broke. Emotions are emotions, okay? Grief and loss grief and loss from one thing is grief and loss from another thing. Yes, there are magnified versions that last much, much, much longer. The accident I had with the child was in the 80s. I'm not suffering grief and loss back from the 80s. And that's because of the cycle. So the cycle starts. The first step is denial. The second step is anger. I should have, I could have, why didn't I? The fourth step is depression. And the 5th step is acceptance. Now, that cycle, the timeline of the cycle is going to be based on the resources you choose to help you through the cycle. And a resource that pats you on the back and says something like, oh, just, get over it, move past it. Come on, comments like that do not help you out. As a matter of fact, comments like that will trigger PTSD. So that's not a help at all. No, I'm a big. Go ahead.
Well, will you go back and repeat those? I don't know if everybody got them, and I want to make sure we get them in the comments.
Yes. So there's 5 steps to grief and loss, and every human is going to experience these, but you can get caught in any one of the 5. So the first one is denial. I'm working with some people currently who are in that stage. They're in the denial stage. So it hasn't hit them emotionally yet. The second stage is anger. They get very angry. Why did the person do that? Why am I the victim of it? They get very angry. The third step is, I should have, I could have, why didn't I? I could have done something, I should have done something, I didn't do something. The fourth step is depression. And the fifth step is acceptance. Now, if you have a guide through that, a therapist through that, that therapist will help you through the process. What I tell people, and it's pretty simple, I ask people, okay, do you get a physical? Yes. Do you get your teeth checked? Yes. Do you get your eyes checked? Yes. Do you go to a therapist once or twice a year? And they look at me really funny. I go, well, you need an emotional checkup. Are you going to do that with your friends? You're going to have an emotional checkup with your friends? Because it's what's called, they have vested emotional interest. They're liable to judge you or reject you or abandon you or give you the silent treatment or withhold love, or it goes on and on and on. Yeah, you need, that's why I studied psychology for 30 years, so I could practice it on myself and other people. So,
on princesses?
Yeah, of course. Of course. To be the ultimate princess, you have to be emotionally balanced, you know?
Absolutely.
Because even princesses get their purses stolen.
Yes, they do. Are a shining example of like living a life you talk about, because you don't say this to other people and then put on a fake smile and not do the work behind the scenes.
No, you have.
To me, Mr. Gary, that's one of the sexiest parts about talk about our.
There's an audio challenge. Can you hear me okay? The link, there's something happening with the link.
Sitting there on your laptop?
No, but see, I couldn't read it anyway, if it did. But I'm missing their audio.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
a delay.
Yeah, there was a lag there for a minute. Because your mouth was moving and I didn't hear any words.
My mouth is always moving.
Well, maybe you know what? Maybe you did that on purpose. Maybe you were seeing. Maybe if you were checking to see if I could lip read.
I was sending you messages.
Okay, I got it.
So I was saying that one of the sexiest things about you is the fact that you are open with those vulnerable places, and you are up, and that's what a lot of leaders do. That fake it till you make it, and all of that. They do not.
You vulnerability is a strength. The challenge is that when, especially when you're a child, when you're a male child, you are taught that vulnerability is a weakness. Big boys don't cry. Girls are taught the same thing. It's just not as defined as it is with males. It's very defined. And because the way we operate, which many people are not familiar with, they don't have an owner's manual. They have owner's manuals for their laptop and their iPad and all these other things. They don't have an owner's manual for their brain, which is the most complex thing on the earth. Well, 90% of human behavior is subconscious. It's not conscious behavior. It's behavior that was put into your subconscious when you were a child. And so now you're an adult and you're actually operating from what you learned as a child. So your behavior is based on your childhood. So you carry the fear of abandonment, you carry codependency, you carry those things forward. And so you're taught to suppress emotions, push down on them. And see, I talk about that all the time. The more transparent you are, if you're transparent, you may get rejected. So what? So what? So you get rejected. So what? When you get rejected, that means both people win. Because why would you want to be with somebody? Why would you want to be in a relationship with somebody that you have to hide your feelings from? Why would you do that? That takes a lot of work. And why if they reject you at the beginning, well, then you won and they won too, because you don't want to. I've done that and it's no fun. It'll wear you out. It'll make you sick. Eventually it'll make you sick.
Yeah.
If you do that.
And it has a terrible ROI.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's another word for that is the law of compounding. Yes, return on investment, no question. Yes. Yeah, well, those are laws. Those are laws that humans aren't taught. The law of cause and effect and the law of compounding. Those are powerful laws, and no human has immunity to those. I don't care if you're mega wealthy with 7 houses and a jet airplane. You are not immune to the laws of cause and effect or the laws of compounding. You're not. I mean, Lance Armstrong will attest to that, as will Tiger Woods, as will Bernie Madoff. It goes on into infinity. Those were all people who started out somewhere and got somewhere else. Some of them in prison for the rest of their life.
Well, something I'm impressed with you, and you already know this, but I'm going to tell everybody anyway, and that is, you said something I didn't know. Operating system that's so much of the subconscious.
Yes.
And I had repeated it, and I asked you questions in my mind because I'm thinking, how can that be? But since that day, I have had a lot of shifts in my thinking because I just realized there's a lot of things that I do automatically or respond or react to automatically.
That's correct.
It came from things I don't even. And that's actually a freeing thing. When you understand the roadmap.
I thought. How old or what was the event, or was there a single event that helped you to understand these truths? Or was there an age or just an event?
Probably the most profound event was my near-death experience. When I went through the near-death experience, I did not go into the white tunnel. I didn't do that. What did happen was I came completely out of my physical body, but I was 100% conscious. So when I looked at my body, I looked and I went, this is very strange, because the me was not inside the vehicle. The vehicle was nothing but a vessel. It had no meaning. It had no anything, because the me part, the consciousness part that I could look out the window and I could hear and I could think, had nothing to do with the vessel. So I was completely separate. And this was nothing at all. So that was an enormous shift, because use your imagination to try and imagine you the you part of you, the personality part of you, the thinking part of you, the imagination part of you being completely separate from the physical body part of you. It took me about 2 years to get comfortable after that happened. I've always studied things like hypnosis. I've studied human behavior. I've always had a deeper understanding that there's a part of us that, if you use computer terms, would be called the operating system, for the lack of another word. So there's an operating system. It's like a computer. You cannot get anything out of a computer that's not in it. So you can't get anything out of it that doesn't exist in it. Now, this is a demonstration. This is an exercise I do with a live audience. So I'll ask a live audience, raise your hand if you can remember being punished when you were 5 years old or younger. And all these hands go up. I choose somebody, give them a microphone. I said, okay, so you can remember being punished when you were 5 years old or younger. Yes. Do you remember what you did? Yes. Do you remember what was said or done to you? Yes. Do you remember at 5 years old or younger the emotions you felt? Yes. Will you please share the emotions with the audience? And here's what happens. First thing, I was confused. I was hurt. I felt bad. I felt at fault. I felt wrong. I felt unliked. And I felt unloved. Okay, if an adult at 55 years old has a clear memory of the emotions they felt when they were 5, guess where those emotions live? In the subconscious mind. That's where they live. So now I tell people, look, you're going to go through your life and you're either going to live the effects of your life or you're going to live the cause. They go, what do you mean? And I go, because there's an original cause. And the original cause is either you grew up with self-worth or you didn't. And that exercise, it doesn't matter where I do that in the world. It doesn't matter the age of the audience. It doesn't matter the gender. The answers are always the same. I've only had one person tell me in all the times I've done that they were never punished. I've only had one person say that. So now imagine you're 5 years old. That goes into the operating system because when you're 5, you don't develop the cognitive part of yourself until you're 7 or 8. So at 5 years old, it goes into the subconscious, and then you live that the rest of your life. You live those things. And then what people do as a result of that original cause, they try to earn love. You don't earn love. You give it. You don't earn it. But when you're children, that's what you're taught. You have to earn it by being compliant. And then adults do it. They start becoming pleasers, and they start saying no when they should have said yes, and saying yes when they should have said no. They start doing all those things, and then they question themselves. And they go, why am I doing this? Why am I in the same relationship again? Why am I in the same job again? Because it's a program. And I did what's called reverse engineering. I was the subject matter. I took myself back to 5 years old, and I looked at all the things that had happened to me. And then I'll tell you something else. Those things, all the physical things I talked about, having rheumatoid arthritis when you're 20 years old, that's unheard of. 20-year-olds don't have rheumatoid arthritis. You get that when you're 65. Why did I have it? Driven by emotions. The RSD, that's an autoimmune disease driven by emotions, caused by emotions. Yeah, and then what happens? It's a downward spiral. That's why people have a hard time healing. They get diagnosed with something, they have a tough time healing because the emotional part of them is going against the healing. It's fighting the healing because it's saying, "Oh, I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to do that. I'll never be able to walk." So it goes against it all. Yeah, they should be teaching this in schools.
Yes, they should.
I see, and I just want to come and sit at your feet.
No, you don't have to sit at my feet. You can sit in the chair next to me or across from me.
I just think you're just so, like, you impacted me, and I know that you take it lightly because you are you. It wasn't a little deal to me. It was a big deal to me. Really. And, you know, I think of paradigms you were saying, our minds are like a computer.
Yeah,
I
they
had
are.
to go back thoughts that changed while I was there, back to every thought archive and compare it to every thought back and go, okay, that is not right. I mean, it was strange how things I have done my whole life that I never recognized were from some things that happened.
That's correct.
I just
That's
never felt.
correct. You know, I tell people, and they resist this. I go, you only have 10% free will. They go, what? You only have 10% free will. They go, how's that possible? I go, because 90% of your behavior is controlled by your subconscious. It's not free. Your subconscious doesn't know right from left, up from down, good from bad, right from wrong. It doesn't know any of that. It's a storage facility. It doesn't know any of that. Here's an example I use. Say to an audience, all right, I'm gonna make a statement. I'm gonna say the first 3 words, and you're gonna complete it because everyone in this room knows exactly what the rest of this statement is because you were taught this as a child, and everybody in here knows it. So I look at the audience, I go, it's better to. And the audience goes, give then receive. Yes, you were taught that. And you know what your subconscious did with that teaching? Here's what your subconscious did. Giving is good, receiving is not good. If you were taught it's better to give and receive, your whole life would be completely different. People reject receiving. They reject it because it causes guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it.
We think we automatically, I've done some things for this week that the first thing that they were, I'll return, and when I give you something, there are no strings. It's that I am giving you this because I'm going to want it later, but it's a lot because, and I think we have that in our mind that we one-upped.
Well,
you know, if then we got to hurry.
Even when you tell them that, even when you say, I'm going to give you something and I expect nothing in return, they're still going to have guilt because of the way they were taught as a child. It's better to give than receive. So they're going to try to get even with you because that's the program that's running in their subconscious. They can't accept it. They can't walk away and genuinely say, thank you very much, I really appreciate that, and mean it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you know, if you go through all silly thoughts that operate of us, and then you throw all of us together in a community, what chaos.
Well, that's what you're seeing currently. You're seeing chaos because people are being influenced to behave a certain way and think a certain way But then if you ask them, why are you behaving that way and why are you thinking that way, they can't tell you. They can't tell you why. Matter of fact, if you confront them too deeply, they'll walk away because they can't answer it.
Yeah.
Because it's in their subconscious.
Well,
That's what's
you're
going on
intimidating. You, Gary King, are intimidating, though.
Well, let's see.
But
So put that in a context.
When you are free and you understand those principles and you have to understand those things, a princess comes along in your life and has no idea that there's an operating system going on. I mean, you know what my face looked like when you told me that. I had to step back and say, what now? What?
What?
And exactly, that's it. and the thing is, you are seen and viewed from the outside as someone who's accomplished so much, that you are this successful, amazing person who cannot understand hurting or anything else because you're too, you know too much. You're too smart. You're too smart for a princess to, to hang out with.
No, it isn't that at all. It's not that. So why would a princess feel intimidated because there's plenty of people that know more than me. And there's plenty of people that know less than me. What difference? It doesn't make any difference at all. That's the whole thing about competition and comparison. That's why competition and comparison are very dangerous. People get all caught up in competition, whether it be sports competition or financial competition. They don't realize the risk in competition. There's a risk in competition. What's the risk? There are always going to be losers in competition.
Yes.
There's going to be a winner and a loser.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you. Everyone that's listening, they're thinking you are, to say though to people that are watching, is that on the outside, if you're just going with surface, you're a whole lot smarter than I am on every plane I know of. And yet, look at how kind you are. And look at how, and it has to do with that not competing. And it has to do with that, working together and being kind to each other in whatever arena. That's personal, that's business, that's professional. Because we're not kind to each other out of fear that you're going to find out those things that I'm faking.
That's right. Or that you're fearful of.
Or that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid to deal with something. I just think that that's part of the intimidation when you meet someone who is confident, or you meet someone who is, is so sexy, Mr. Gary.
Well, thank you, Princess Kim. I joke. I joke. I spent a lot of my life resisting emotions, suppressing emotions. And then I went through the near-death experience. And in the last 25 years, I've flown an unbelievable amount of miles. And I'll sit on an airplane and watch a movie, and the tears are just pouring down my face on the airplane, and people are staring at me. They're going, what's wrong with that guy? He's crying. And I can remember all the years I'd sit in movie theaters, and I'd hang on to the armrests, and I'd go, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I keep it all inside of me. Well, you know what happens when you do that? You become a volcano, and then all of a sudden you erupt and you spew emotional lava all over everybody and everything.
Yes.
Totally.
And how many people do that? I mean, there's so many people that don't understand that.
No, because we in Western culture, when you're Westernized, you are taught that life is about, it's external. And so it's interesting because I want to jump back real quick to the start of this where you use the word successful. Well, part of what I did the last 4 or 5 years on the road, I interviewed a lot of people that were standing in the queue waiting to get into very expensive seminars, anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 US dollars or more. And I go interview them while they're standing in the queue. And I go, hey, I'm curious, why are you here? You spent an awful lot of money between the ticket price and a hotel and airfare. Why are you here? I want to change my life. Oh, that's great. What do you want to change it into? And it was as I was asking them trick questions. What would you like to change it into? And they'd think and they'd go, I want to be more successful. That's great. Give me your definition. Well, now it was as if I asked them how the universe was created. Let's see. I want to have more money. Oh, okay. So let me understand this. You spent a whole lot of money to come here. You came here to change your life. You came here because you thought you'd be more successful. And the reason you want to be more successful is to have more money. Is that accurate? Yes. Where did you get the idea that money has anything whatsoever to do with success? What does it have to do with? Because it's all relative. So now I'll share a quick story. This is very current. Harvard University just completed the longest study ever on happiness. 75-year study. It's the longest study in history on happiness. It cost $20 million to conduct a study, and it took 75 years. And here's what they determined as a result of the 75-year study. You ready? Because this is going to go against the grain, probably, of everybody who's watching this. So, it came out in the study conclusively that money, fame, competition, comparison, conquest, materialism have zero to do with happiness. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. That happiness after the 75-year study was determined to be a result of deep emotional connection to other people. Deep emotional connection to other people. Now, the formula that I created: forgiveness, honesty and truth, and self-worth. Try having a deep emotional connection when you won't forgive yourself and other people, when you're not honest and you don't have any self-worth. Try having a deep emotional connection. So the reality of it is their study proves out what I decided to do, which was create the formula. It proved it out. So they spent the 20 million. I didn't. They spent the 75 years. I didn't. But they came to the conclusion that it's about deep emotional connection, which is created by forgiveness, honesty, and self-worth. So
they were scared not to do that test.
You know, everybody that's watching this is going to go, now, wait a minute. Happiness has nothing to do with money? Well, not according to the Harvard study, and not according to the Gary King study either. that didn't work for me.
I have to tell you, I just finished up the Run Women's Conference tour, and one of the things I spoke on the last day of the tour was, where is there? Because everybody talks about when I get there, meaning success. Where is there? Because there is not where you think it is. You win money's the don't have any. When whatever it is that you're lacking, that becomes the focus of where there is going to be. When I get my $1 million, then this will happen. And when I, this and the truth is, where is there? Where is there ever going to be enough of that kind of stuff to satisfy you to actually arrive there?
Well, that's why, let's see, the poor want more, the middle class want more, and the mega rich want more. They all want more. Well, let's see. It's the theory of the poor, the mega rich, that's the destination. No, when you ask them, they haven't reached the destination yet. 7 houses isn't enough. I got to have more. All that tells you is when you see that kind of behavior, that's in I'm not a gambler or a poker player, but in gambling, that's called the tell. That tells you about the person's personality. That tells you that they're insecure. They're not secure within themselves because they keep having to have more to try and fill the void. Well, the void isn't filled from the outside world. The void is filled internally, not externally.
Well, and I think we strive, to add just little bit more flavor to that. I think we strive to get there to impress people we don't even know who they are, and to make ourselves feel better. But the truth is, none of that does it. None of that works.
No, it's all
our mindset. It's our mindset that says, are we happy? When we're happy, then we can be successful.
It's insecurity driven. It's driven by insecurity. If you're not secure about who you are, you're always going to be looking for something. I was at a little birthday party, and a female friend, I was having a conversation with her, and I said to her, is there anybody, it was in a bar and a restaurant that's right down the street from where I live. I said, is there anybody in here you'd rather look like than you? And she said, absolutely. And she pointed to another female in the restaurant. And I said, so you'd rather look like her? She said, that's right. And I said, well, I looked over and I was pretty sure it was a mother and daughter having dinner. I would typically get up, walk over to the person she pointed to, and go, hey, I'm doing a research project. I'd introduce myself. I'm doing a research project. I'm just curious, is there anybody in here you'd rather look like than yourself? Now, I do that a lot, and 90% of the women I ask say, yes, I would like to look like somebody else. And I told the woman I was talking to, I said, chances are what she would do is she would look around the room and she would point at you.
Yes,
absolutely.
Because that had happened.
Yes. Yes. Well, and if I know who you're talking about, at the restaurant I think you're talking about, I'm laughing to myself and I'm thinking, she looks like a model.
Yes, she did. Yes, but she was insecure. And insecurity starts in childhood, is where it starts, and then you don't like what you look like in the mirror, and it starts all this competition. And here's the reality. The reality of it is your body shape and size has nothing to do with anything. It really has nothing to do with anything. It's just marketers make it have something to do with something. You go to third world countries, body shape and size has nothing to do with anything. Nothing. Zero.
Well, Did you know I had a bobblehead last week?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
I had an allergic reaction. You know, Vanity and Princesses. I had used some hair dye that gave me an allergic reaction, and I looked like a bobblehead. And I was supposed to speak at the conference, and I had a choice to make. I really did. I looked really bad, and I had a choice to make of whether I should, just bow out and just tell Dr. Cassandra, I can't do this because look at my head. But instead, Mr. Gary, you'll be so proud of this princess. I went and put my tiara on. This is for real. I went and put my tiara on and my red formal dress and came out at the conference to speak, to turn down for what?
And so if you hadn't have done that, how many people would have judged your hair?
Probably no one that I cared their opinion.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, exactly.
I'm fighting those glitter highlights, I'm just out there with that. Well, so the people that are listening today, I don't want them to walk away thinking, okay, y'all can do all that stuff, but that doesn't pertain to me. What is something small? Because it all starts with something small.
That's correct.
What is something small they can do?
Here's 18 years ago when I started as a speaker. My first presentation was in Australia. I gave a 2-hour extemporaneous presentation. Imagine that, me giving a 2-hour extemporaneous presentation when I can now do like 40 hours of extemporaneous presentation. So anyway, there's 300 people in the room, and they're giving me time cards from the back. And my presentation at the time was called The Power of Truth. And so they're giving me time cards, and the time card said you had 10 minutes left. Now, when I'm doing presentations, I'm very connected to the audience. I'm watching people's eyes. I'm watching their body language. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, it was great that I got up here. I shared a lot of information, but I need to make it personal. So I need to make it personal with everybody in the room. And I thought, while I'm standing there, how am I going to do this? So I look at the clock in the back of the room, and I think it said 10 after 8. And so I looked at the audience and I said, okay, I have a challenge for you. And if you choose to do this challenge, you will discover more about yourself than you've ever discovered before in a 24-hour period, ever in your lifetime. You'll have a bigger shift than you've ever had before. So here's my challenge. I challenge you to be 100% honest and authentic for 24 straight hours, no matter what the situation. And that includes being honest with yourself, not just other people. So that's the challenge. I will tell you this about the challenge. When you do it, you'll feel something you may have never felt before in your solar plexus. It's called congruency, because humans aren't congruent. You'll feel congruency. The other thing you'll notice is that most of your lies are auto responses. You'll also notice that your lies are self-destructive, that they gain you nothing. In the very short term, you may escape accountability in the very short term, but you'll pay a much bigger price 2 weeks down the road. So that was how I started. And people to this day, that was 18 years ago, people to this day go, that challenge changed my whole entire life. Some people came up to me and said, I had to start over every 10 minutes. That's okay.
Yeah.
You see,
Keep starting over, right?
you cannot. There's fundamentals of a human life. There's a fundamental foundation of a human life, and it goes back thousands of years. And the fundamental foundation is simple. If you forgive yourself and other people, you can walk freely through life, because if you don't forgive them, you're drinking the poison, they're not drinking it. You just think they're drinking the poison, they're not drinking the poison. If you're constantly lying all the time, one white lie affects every one of the 50 trillion cells in your body. One white lie. I will give you a real-time example. Miss Vicky and I, on the way from the airport, I stopped at a Walmart. I needed to buy an SD card for my high-def camera. So on the way back from the airport, I pulled it into a Walmart. I also wanted to buy a pair of shorts that have been hard to get. So we go in the store. I buy 3 items. One of them is $1.43. The shorts were $14, and the SD card was $29.95. I carry it to the register. I lay the shorts on the counter, the SD card's on top of the shorts, and this other little garden hose valve was sitting there. So the guy picks up the items, he rings it up, I put my credit card in there, I get the receipt, and I walk to the car. When I get to the car, which is quite a ways from the store, so I didn't park right out front, I'm thinking something isn't right here. So I look at the receipt, and the receipt is for $15 and something cents. And I went, and I look at the receipt and I go, the shorts are on it, and the hose valve is on it, and the $30 SD card is not on it. What did I do?
You went back inside. I know you.
I went back into the store, and I went back up to the cashier, and I said, you made a mistake. And see, the cashier automatically thought that I was coming in to say that you charged me too much. Okay?
Yes.
And so he was shocked. The door greeter was shocked, because how many people would do that? Now, this is not about, this is not to impress people that that's what I did. And I told Vicky on the way back from going, she stayed in the car. I went in and did the transaction and came back. And I said, had I have not done that, what would I have had to carry with me? Guilt for not doing that.
Exactly.
I also would have carried what's called bad karma.
Well, this interview would not have gone as well, because you would be thinking about that in the back of your mind. You would be not congruent.
Free. I would be not free. I would have got a free SD card, but I would have been in jail. That's the irony of the whole thing. Free SD card, emotional jail. When I spoke in the maximum security prisons in Dublin, Ireland, the first thing I noticed when I spoke in the prisons is that the prisoners, the prison they were in was not the walls and the bars. The prison they were in was in their head. And that prison in their head got them into the physical prison.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I must make a confession, because I'm not like you, like all awesome and stuff. No, I am awesome. I'm a princess.
Yes, you are. Don't sell yourself short.
But I didn't know, and this is just ignorance because I just didn't have any dealings with it, but I didn't realize that when people were in prison that they actually became what was called institutionalized.
Correct.
That what you're talking about, they might get out of the actual cell or the barbed wire
Right.
fence,
That's right.
but they took that prison with
Take it with
them,
Yeah.
and then they couldn't
That's
function
No.
in society or relationships because they can't get past it.
See, what happens when you're incarcerated like that, it reinforces and brainwashes the person to believe that they're bad. So when they get out, they're still bad. That's why many prisoners go right back in again. That has to do with a lot of other emotional things too. That has to do with feeling comfortable, confined, and very uncomfortable where they're not confined. There's a lot of things behind that.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing behind it is well, here's a statistic. There's 7 million people in prison on planet Earth. 2.8 million of them are in prison. There's 7 million people in prison on planet Earth. 7 million on the whole planet in prison. 2.8 million of them are in prison in the United States. We are not.
Wow.
We are not 35% of the landmass, and we're not 35% of the population either. But 35% of the people are in prison in this country. Why? Why? It's not. Why? There's a reason why. Yeah. Prisons in this country. A lot of people don't realize that prisons in this country are entrepreneurial ventures. You want to make a lot of money? Start building prisons. Start building prisons. Yeah, they're investors invest in prisons because they make lots and lots and lots of money. But in order for them to make lots and lots of money, it's like a restaurant. If you're going to make a lot of money in a restaurant, you got to, the term is called turn the tables. You got to keep filling the tables or you're not going to make any money. It's the third turn of the table where you make your money in a restaurant. Well, in order to make money with a prison, you got to keep them full.
Makes sense.
They make a lot. The government pays a lot of money to private prisons. Lots.
Wow. You're just blowing my mind as usual.
Well, I hope it's doing it in a good way.
Of course. You're a good influence.
This has been fascinating.
Yeah,
All right.
This has been amazing.
All right,
We're gonna have to we're
past time. We've run out of time.
only for this session.
Okay.
Can you join Evan for the next session and we can maybe continue on? And if anybody has any questions, they can ask during that session. The next session is the last Q&A of the conference.
Yeah.
It's where all the speakers can come on and if anyone asks questions, they can answer.
Yeah, I love Q&As. People learn a lot from Q&As too. That's why I like doing them, because people learn a lot from them.
Well, you know this princess does.
So does this king.
Well, thank you so much for being on with us for this interview, and I do hope you will come back at 7 so we can continue with some more questions, because I know people have questions for you.
I will.
Gary, it was a real pleasure to speak. It was wonderful. Thank you.
You are very welcome. It was an honor.
You know I love you, and we'll see you in just a little while.
Love you too. See ya.
This is the Hope to Hope Conference. I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business team, and Dr. Cassandra Bradford Wilson is off collecting prizes without me on the red carpet, dressing all cute. But she's from Genesis Preferred Solutions. So,
and I'm Connie Myers, and I'm the founder of the Crystalline Moment Success Movement.
So this is Hope to Hope. We'll see you in the next session. Love you guys.
Love you too.